Hey everybody, welcome back to Winnemac Hockey. In today's video, we're talking about the Ottawa Senators. In this video, we'll break it up into three parts, which are the season recap, the offseason analysis, and the next season preview. Stay tuned and let's get into the video. All right, guys, so today we're talking about the Ottawa Senators, and we're going to start with part one, and that is this season's recap. So, fellas, the Ottawa Senators finished with a record of 33, 42, and 7, which is not great, but this team has so much potential and so much coming up for them. They put themselves in a really good position over the past couple of days. But, fellas, let's talk about this past season. What do you think went wrong for them, and what do you think that they need moving forward at this point? And Jake, I'll come to you here.
All right. Well, first I want to say they are making moves, but they are not the only ones making a push. You watching this video are making a push. You're pushing that subscribe button. But let's get into the Ottawa Senators, shall we? This team looks fantastic. I know I've talked to you guys about it. This was my Stanley Cup favorite a week ago, and now they got DeBrincat. So this team's just so good. That's the only way to say it. The team is fantastic, and I think that they should be the highest odds to win the Cup.
Matt, are you in agreement with Jake on this?
I don't know about winning the Cup, but I think they did make a lot of big strides. Obviously, the big one being number 12 there on the wing. But I think for the most part, yeah, still look at that defense. I think that was probably a moment of concern for them, is that for the most part, their forward group was great. And that's something that they don't need much adjusting going into this offseason. But their defensive group definitely needs a little bit of work. A lot of up into the 30-year-olds there that weren't doing great. Obviously, you can count on a guy like Thomas Chabot, but then after that, it's kind of question marks, young guys, or it's a bunch of 30-year-old journeymen. So it's like they need to build a little bit of a nucleus there. But I think other than that, they're pretty close.
Yeah, Jake, do you agree with Matt in that regard, that defense was probably the biggest issue for Ottawa this season, or what do you think was the missing piece this season?
So I think they're working with a very young defense. They've got Chabot, who's showed us that he can impress in the NHL, and they've got the other prospect goalie. Why am I blanking on his name? What's his name? Branstrom. Okay, cut that out. They've got Eric Branstrom, and he hasn't really proven what he can do really yet. Only 14 points last year, but there's a lot of potential there, and I think he's going to be great when he finds his game in the NHL. You're going to know his name. I'm going to know his name, but I think that their defense has a lot of potential there. And what the Avalanche showed us is that you don't need the best goaltending. So while I might look at Matt Murray being an issue, look at the Avalanche. It doesn't matter. Darcy Kemper is a Stanley Cup champion, not because he's good, but because it doesn't matter that much in the playoffs, apparently.
All right, guys. So one of our favorite parts here about the season recap is talking about our MVPs. So let's talk about our MVPs for the season. And Matt, I want to start with you.
All right, my MVP was a guy who only played halfway through the season because Aaron Dale is a douchebag. And took him out during the season, but man, he was on a monster season. It was the guy who is formerly from Fort Wayne, Indiana, should be from Indiana, but for some reason he feels like he should be Canadian. And that's Drake Batherson. He had 44 points in 46 games with a +4, on pace for a monster season. He got a monster extension. He's on this team until 2027, making just under $5 million, which I think is an amazing contract for a guy with a lot of potential. Has center wing flexibility, can play on pretty much any line they want him to play. And he's really good, great playmaker, but he can also shoot the puck a little bit. 17 goals this year, was probably on pace for a 25 and above goal season until obviously that incident happened. And I think he's going to come back even stronger. And with the additions that they add, he's going to be even better next year. But he was really good this
year. Yeah. Jake, how about you? Who's your MVP for the Senators?
My MVP had the second most points on the team. And before I get into him, I want to say, first place, the only guy to have more points than my MVP was Brady Tkachuk. And the C on his jersey stands for clown. If you're an Ottawa Senators fan watching this, how do you feel about this guy parading around in Flames colors? I get that he's supporting his brother, but you can't have your captain rocking another team's colors. And I don't think he ever did wear the logo per se, but he got awfully close to putting himself in the Calgary Flames image. And yeah, I think that's an embarrassment for the organization. But my MVP bleeds Ottawa Senators. It's Tim Stützle, and he had 58 points in 79 games, including 22 goals. And this man is young. He's a center, right? He's a dominant forward, and he's a left wing. My bad. He's a left wing, and he's still putting up those points, which Brady Tkachuk, I think I can confirm he is a center. He only has more points because he's a center, and I will not be argued with on that. Tim Stützle greater than Brady Tkachuk.
Okay, interesting take. You might get a lot of heat for that. So just preparing you now. But hey, you're allowed to have your opinion there. So fellas, my MVP is the man who put up 35 goals for the Ottawa Senators this season. That's Josh Norris. The guy's an RFA this year. He's going to be a huge asset that obviously the Senators need to bring back. In 66 games, he had 55 points, -7 overall. The team was a -39 overall. So I would say he had a pretty dang good season. 35 goals is nothing to scoff at. I mean, you bring in a guy like DeBrincat, he scored 41. So putting those two together, man, that's going to be absolutely filthy. So that's my MVP, fellas. So now let's jump over into part two, the offseason. Ottawa has 20 million roughly in cap, and that is after acquiring Alex DeBrincat. There's so much that this team can do. So, fellas, what do you think it is that this team needs to do? Obviously, there's some RFAs. I just mentioned one of them, and there's a pretty good market for players this season in free agency. So, who do you think they go after? Do they trade anyone? What are your thoughts on that, Jake?
All right, so I just fact checked myself, and I was right the first time. Tim Stützle is a center, as Daily Faceoff says. The NHL website says that he's a wing, but I don't trust the NHL website. I was pretty sure he was a center, and he is. So you have Norris and Stützle down the center. That is a great top six center duo there. So what they need is a winger. And a winger that I've heard is going to that team is Claude Giroux. That is a veteran. Now, you stick him with that clown Brady Tkachuk, who can't stay out of the box, and you have a veteran there. Maybe you turn his career around a little bit. But Claude Giroux being a veteran presence on that team, I think that's the final piece that you need to win a cup. Don't ask the Florida Panthers because it didn't work out for them. But I think in Ottawa, having Giroux as a part of this well-rounded offense could be a game changer.
Yeah, Florida, a lot of people are going to blame Bobrovsky and not Giroux. So I think you're onto something there, pal. Matt, how about you? Who do you think that Ottawa needs to bring in, if anyone at all, to try to make a push for a deep playoff run?
I think one guy in particular, and I was talking about the defense being a little bit of an issue last year. I think one guy with the cap space that they have, John Klingberg. This guy was a monster defenseman for Dallas last year. Had 51 points in 82 games. Was plus 30 or more, I'm pretty sure. And the dude was dominant for them. He's got to be in a UFA. He's going to cost a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but they have the cap space for it. And if they can bring him in, put him beside a Shabbat, or put him with the young Brandstrom and help his career develop, I think they could have an amazing top three that can add to their offensive depth they have. And their team would be really scary and a force in the Atlantic next year.
Yeah, so Klingberg and Giroux, those are two big names. And, man, Ottawa could really make a bigger splash. They've already made a huge splash getting to DeBrincat. Imagine bringing in another name like that in the same offseason. Fellas, so that's just two players. Do you have any other thoughts as to people they could bring in? And if not, what are your thoughts on the current RFAs?
So I want to comment on Klingberg. And I do think that they have some lack of defensemen on the back end there. And I think Klingberg would be a great choice because he's another veteran. And I think they could get both. And hear me out on this. You've got a couple of years till your big prospects who are going to eventually want money. You got a couple of years till you really need to lock them in on their big deals. And right now, you have $20 million, almost $21 million in cap space. Add a forward, add a defender, this is where I look at like the St. Louis Blues when they went on their run. It was when they had the big contracts, the Tarasenko, Shen, O'Reilly, but then they also had their young guys with like Giroux and Rob Thomas. They were also pushing and they were on their cheap deals. You win championships by leveraging your young rosters, and I think adding 2 veterans, that's exactly what they should do here. So I say go get both of them.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that they could afford that with their RFAs? I mean, are they going to have to let some RFAs walk in this situation? And do they need to prioritize bringing back any particular RFAs? Matt, any thoughts on that one?
Well, I think they could definitely look at moving some of their guys that weren't so spectacular for them this year. Like I look at a guy like Nikita Zaitsev, who was playing third pair minutes for them on defense. The guy's making $4.5 million for the next 2 years. He wasn't awful. 11 points in 62 games and -7, which is okay for a team that played like they did this year. But definitely a guy, if you could snatch a late round pick for him, something to shed cap to make that work, I think you can. And if you can get his chunk off the books, that could give you plenty of room to make moves like that.
Mm-hmm. Jake, do you agree with Matt on that one? Maybe get rid of a little bit of extra cap to ensure that you can bring back a guy like Josh Norris, because I think that he's got to be a priority for Ottawa right now, and then also go after some of these big guys as well.
Yeah, I think the 2 big RFAs that I'm looking at are Josh Norris, your MVP, who is still an RFA. That shows how young this team is. And also Eric Brandstrom, who I mentioned earlier is going to be a great piece of this team going forward. So you've got those 2 big names to lock in. They have 20 mil, which honestly, I think that those 2 aren't going to take up too much of it. Probably Norris more than Brandstrom, but they're still probably going to be on a bridge deal because they haven't really solidified themselves as longtime NHL players. But you also have to consider that Matt Murray is going to be off this team, not this coming season. He's also locked in for the year after. But after that, that's $6.25 million off the books. So I think that long term, they don't have too much to worry about.
Yeah, that is a good point. You could definitely get bridge deals done to try to ensure some success before you have to really hand out some extensions, because DeBrincat, great player. He's going to command a lot of money after this season. He's making 6.4 right now. Very well, easily can make north of 10 with the production that he had in Chicago. And if he keeps it up in Ottawa, it's something that they're going to have to budget for if they want to keep him around. So yeah, any other thoughts as to what they can do this off season to push and keep on pushing, because it looks like that they definitely are ready to get back into the playoff hunt?
One guy that I think that they could move is Michael Del Zotto, who I love, but while looking up this stuff, noticed that he's making $2 million, which is way too much for his role, which Matt pointed out earlier is a scratch most of the time. So get that $2 million off the books, and then you've got even more to work with.
Mm-hmm. Matt, any other thoughts as to what Ottawa can do this offseason?
Maybe just looking for more impactful third and fourth liners, guys who can give you a little bit more production other than that. But like for the most part, I think they have most of their nucleus ready to try to make a push here. Like if we add in like a guy like Giroux and a guy like Klingberg into this lineup, this team could be a really scary team. And in the Atlantic, where it seems like one team's always making a push, whether it's Toronto one year or obviously Tampa another, or Florida this past season, there's always a team that kind of comes out of nowhere and becomes like the top dog in the division. And I think this year it could definitely be Ottawa.
Mm-hmm. So, hey, speaking of predictions, let's hop into part 3, and that is next season's preview for what we have the Ottawa Senators, where we have them finishing in their division, because man, they're in a tough division and they're in a tough conference after what we saw with the playoffs this year. Every team having over 100 points. Remarkable. So it's going to be tough to make a playoff spot this upcoming season. But with that being said, with the moves that they've done so far and could potentially do, where do you see them finishing this upcoming season? Jake? I
see big strides made for this team this year. As far as the regular season goes, I don't think they're going to win it. I think the division's too stacked. But I honestly see them around third. Wouldn't be surprised if they got second. But I will lock them in for third in the Atlantic this year.
Nice. Matt, how about you?
I can see them being around the 4th spot in the division. I think, like we said before in the past, it seemed like Boston's probably going to take a step back with their aging core. But you got a team like Florida who kept most of their guys. You got a team like Toronto. They're kind of a question mark in net. We'll see what they do there. And then obviously Tampa, no matter what they do, they're always there. So yeah, I could definitely see Ottawa as a wild card team this year if they just continue to elevate their play and bring in guys like we were talking about. And it'll be an interesting playoff situation if they're in it next year.
Yeah, and not only are them top dogs still going to be competing, but Detroit has also been making some moves as well. That's a team that's also trying to cap their rebuild and push back into the playoffs. So that team's also going to be putting up a fight. Ottawa, though, I think they're making all the right moves. And I agree with you guys. I think they very well could find themselves in a playoff spot. Most importantly, they got to stay healthy. We saw how Batherson's injury really hurt that team. So if they can stay healthy and they can get some depth pieces or maybe another big name, this team is well on their way. So, fellas, on that note, is there anything else that you want to add about the Ottawa Senators before we wrap up the video?
I've got one more W for the Senators to point out. That new arena looks fantastic. So not only are they going to have a top 5 NHL team on the ice, the building surrounding the ice is top 5 in the NHL. Fantastic. And I am jumping on that bandwagon.
Yep. With being a Hawks fan, seeing DeBrincat go over to Ottawa, I'm definitely going to be snagging me an Ottawa DeBrincat jersey. And yeah, I'm definitely going to be cheering for Ottawa low key as they make a resurgence into the playoffs. Matt, any other thoughts?
Not much. It's really just I'm excited to see this young team play. It's another one of those young teams, kind of like Anaheim of last year. It's got a lot of young roster players that are going to play a huge part on this team. So, I mean, it's going to be fun to watch. There's going to be some up and down, exciting hockey there at Ottawa, and hopefully the capital of Canada can see some playoff hockey for the first time in a while.
Absolutely. So, hey guys, if you're still with us, thank you for tuning into this video and let us know what you think about Ottawa's off season and where you think that they're going to be ending up soon. We would love to hear from you and talk some hockey. We'll see you next time on Winnemac Hockey. All right, guys, today we're talking about the Ottawa Senators. Wait, what the heck just happened?
Just do it again.
Okay, all right, here we go. I'll give Matt a second to collect himself here.
I'm okay. Just keep going.